Okay, it froze on me. Okay, great. It froze a minute there. How are you all? I am in Arkansas. I hope you're all doing well. And there was a short message back and forth in one of the, I think it was after my hours, office hours. And some had been asking if I had recorded it. And normally we don't record the office hours. And we were talking about ANTS and how get rid of the ANTS, automatic negative thoughts. And Ina Gould put a little blurb from Dr. Amen on the band and post. And so I said, that's okay, I will teach on that. So hopefully it will go well. I was trying to do it through my computer and it kept disconnecting and freezing, and I hope the phone doesn't do that. But what we're going to do is, there are approximately, well, according to Dr. Amen, that's just the way he has grouped them because of his practice and what he has gathered from them, about 9 types of or species of those automatic negative thoughts. And this is just basically when you our brain, it's always doing that. Your brain is constantly talking to you, and then this negative, it's kind of like you have a picnic, and then you get some ants, and then when you realize they're all over your food and you can't eat your food. So think about it that way. This automatic negative thoughts, when they pop in, they come in to steal your joy. So, or cause grief and trauma, or they are just things from your past that you thought you had overcome, or you're not even aware that you even had them, but you start realizing there is a pattern to them. So usually he's a psychiatrist, so he sees all these patients and they all come with the same type of questions and situations. So he started grouping them, and he realized this is something that it's a pattern. So I'm just going to name them and explain them to you, because there is something else besides that. There are dragons. He calls it dragons, and we have to tame our dragons. So the biblical background for that's the way I internalize this teaching, is that those dragons is really my flesh. So my flesh, kind of like that old serpent, because dragons really is what they are. It's a type of serpent. They come in to fuel those automatic negative thoughts, and they just breathe fire into something and make things worse. So when you think about it that way, if my flesh is constantly intervening and making things difficult for me, that means my flesh is the strongest part and not my mind. So because we have the mind of Messiah, and that's whichever we feed the most, that will be the strongest. And the scripture that comes to my mind would be in Genesis, when Abba tells Cain, sin is crouching at your door and its desire is to have you, but you must master it. So that's the way I see taming those dragons. There is a part of me that is going to want to trip me. And just like the serpent did to Adam and Eve, this dragon wants to have me and make me sin. And so I need to tame that part of me and put it under the submission, because remember, the beast was created first, and then man. So we need to have man ruling over the animals. That means the beast of the field, and that part of me that is my flesh comes out of that, comes out of the ground, just like the beast came out of the ground too. So when we look at that, and then we start realizing, okay, there is a little game here. So let's say that when the serpent came to Adam and Eve, and it said to them, "Oh, you will surely not die. Just, God doesn't want you to know as much as he does. He's holding back on you, pretty much." So what happens is that instead of them answering that serpent and engaging in that conversation, if they would have just said, "Who are you to tell me anything and speak against your creator? Because he created you and me. And he told me not to eat from that tree. And that's enough for me." And that would have been it. We can speak back to those dragons and tame them, because the dragon has no authority over me unless I give it to him. So it's important for us to know how to speak back and how to tame that dragon, because this is our vehicle. It's not like we can really get rid of our flesh and say, "Oh, well, it's okay. I'll just get rid of it." No, you have no vehicle to do, Abba's work in this world without this flesh. So we just have to rule over it the way he told us to. So let's just go over those 9 species of ants. So the first one is all or nothing. So these are the type of thoughts that will come to your mind, is thinking that there's either all good or all bad. I used to say very proudly that I was black and white. It was all or nothing. Well, I didn't know how much I was speaking of myself. So of how that's a negative pattern. It's not something to be proud of. And but that's the way my brain would want to go. And now, do I have to stay there? No, I don't. Because you know what? The dragon that fuels that all or nothing is judgmental. So what is going to happen is that my reaction, if I allow those automatic negative thoughts of all or nothing to rule over me, then I will be judgmental on people or in circumstances or even myself. So it is important that I learn to tame that dragon so I don't sin by being judgmental on others, because I'm not God and I'm not supposed to be judging others. That's God's job, not mine. There is another species that is called the less than. So less than is the type of thoughts that would say, when you compare and see yourself less than others. So, "Oh, no, I'm not so-and-so, that person is just so anointed, that person is so wonderful, or she can sing better, or she can dance better, or she can teach better," or whatever we like to compare ourselves with. So then we have that less or that. Now, let's see what dragon fuels that. So the dragon that fuels that automatic negative thought is a dragon that it's called abandoned, invisible, or insignificant, inferior, or flawed. So, you may think that, well, that's just, being humble, because I'm just humble and I know that I'm not as good as so-and-so. Well, really, when you put yourself down, it's okay to recognize that somebody has more talent than you. Many people have more talent than me in everything. It doesn't mean that I am less than them. It's just I recognize their talent, and that's it. I don't have that talent. That's perfectly fine. But when I go, "Oh no, it's just that I'm not like that. I just can never do that." When you do, that's false humility. It really is. It stems from being abandoned. It stems from being invisible. Middle child children will have that problem because they do become invisible. Then somebody else is better than them because they're older, or the younger ones are more loved because they're the baby of the house. And unfortunately, that one in the middle becomes invisible because the older need more attention for, they have more activities and more things that they're doing, and the baby needs more attention because it's a baby and can't do anything by themselves. So that middle child tends to be more not seen as much. But that doesn't mean that they feel invisible or they feel insignificant, or inferior or flawed. And it is something that depending on your personality, you may tend to go there and allow that dragon to, breathe fire in your negative thoughts. So then there is another ant that it's called just the bad. Just the bad is seeing only the bad in every situation. That is very common on people that are more of half empty glass. So everything is, oh, that's horrible. Nothing good is going to come out of that. I knew that was going to happen. There's always this seeing only the bad. And the dragon that fuels this one is a wounded dragon. It could be an ancestral dragon. It could be just the way your parents or your grandparents or whoever took care of you, that's the way they always talked. So you hear that over and over, and it's kind of like a broken record in your mind. It could be hopeless or helpless, a dragon, or it could be a death dragon that just wants to bring death into a situation and just be negative and pessimistic. Then you have the guilt beating ant, and that one is the one that is thinking in words like thinking in words like yes, should, must, ought, and have to. So when you hear, and I was one of those, I'm working really hard not to do, you should be doing that, you ought to do that. And it sometimes comes natural with a type A personality. And but that doesn't mean that is the right thing to do, because we shouldn't be telling anybody what they ought to do or what they should do. You can say what I would do, which is different than telling them what to do. So that usually comes from the should and shaming dragon. So that's the kind of dragon, and one of the reasons that would be very common, or that going back to that broken record, the way I was programmed, I was a middle child, but I was the oldest of the younger. There was 6 years between my older brother and me. So those two were raised. My mom used to joke around and said that I was the oldest of the second marriage, and it was the same marriage. But there was so many years in between us that it almost feel like those two were from one family and the four of us were from another one. But that was something that my mom made me the oldest with my little brother and sisters. And it was always, you should be doing this. They did that because it's your fault. I was in charge of them. I was the mom. I was anything. They broke up a plate. It was my fault. So when you hear that, and and then you're shamed by anything that they did wrong because I didn't look after them. I wasn't there to protect them or whatever. Like, I'm the mom. But that's the way I was raised. So then you find yourself using all those words because you become this mom that you are telling everybody what to do. And then it goes from your little brother and sisters to my friends and even in my marriage. So that was something that my husband is like, you need to stop that. You can't be telling people you should, you ought to. But in my black and white, that was it fit. It was normal. So those are the things that we have to find our patterns and we have to work with them. Okay. Then another one is labeling. This automatic negative thought is usually when you are attaching a negative label to yourself or someone else. Oh, he's just too slow, or he's just clumsy, or he doesn't know anything, oh, he forgets everything. You just give these labels to people, and that is damaging to them. And then you place them in places, in cubicles or boxes where they don't belong. That's not who they are. So labeling is not something good. And the dragon that fuels that is the also the shouldn't shaming. It goes back to that, and it also goes back to the judgmental, because when you're going to judge someone, you're going to label them. So that comes natural with that ant. Then you have the fortune telling ant, and that is the predicting the worst possible outcome for a situation with a little or no evidence of it. So then something happens, and then you go, like I said before, with a all or nothing. Oh, I knew that was going to happen. Or with the negative one, just the bad. It's the person that would just automatically say that now, he's going to fall and he's going to break his arm, and then he'll never walk again. It's like, what? How did you even get there? The person just stepped out of the car. How do you get to he's going to break his leg and then he's never going to walk again? But that, unfortunately, is fueled by a dragon that it's called the anxious dragon. The anxious, you remember me mentioning this before to you, that people that get depressed are constantly thinking in the past. People that get stressed is in the present, and people that are anxious are in the future. So because you don't know what the future is, then you're anxious. You don't know what's going to happen. So obviously fortune telling will be, a way for you to feel better, because all of a sudden, yes, he's going to break his leg and he'll never going to walk again. So somehow that's the fire that anxious dragon will breathe into a situation. And also there's another dragon, the hopeless and helpless dragon. It's like, you just predict the worst, because you're just hopeless, you're just helpless, and you just don't know what to do. So then we have the mind reading, which is a little bit kind of like fortune telling, but in a different arena. That would be the one that believe in you know whatever the other person is thinking, even if they haven't told you. So I'll see right now, Cindy is listening to me, and I see all of a sudden she just made a face there, and I go, oh, I know exactly what's going on. Yeah, Cindy just hates it. She does not like what I'm saying, and she's upset. And Cindy has not opened her mouth. She probably ate something in half gas, and her stomach hurts. I'm glad you're laughing. Who knows? Something, somebody in the room said something to her, and she made a face to that person, not to me, but I immediately think I know exactly what Cindy's thinking, and I go ahead and read her mind and just tell you what I know she's thinking. So that very common, and oh my goodness, that can get you into so many troubles. So that is a dragon that will fuel this type of mind reading, would be an abandoned dragon, because I don't know why somebody abandoned me, like my parents, or a friend, spouse, anybody that I have a relationship with, that it's important to me. So then automatically it's easier for me to just say something instead of feeling bad. I'm just going to say, oh, that was because of this. I know it because I saw it in her face. I just, she just folded her arms, and she may be cold, and she put her arms around because she was cold, but no, she just didn't like it. She put her arms up, so anything that will make you think um, that being invisible is another of the dragons, the insignificant dragon or the anxious dragon. Any of those will make you think that you know what other people think. Then we have the 8th one is if only, and I'll be happy when. This one is very, very popular. Automatic negative thought. It is when you argue with the past and long for the future. So it's like, if only I had, I don't know, this job, then I would be happy. If only I could get the house that, that one in the corner that I really like, then I will be happy. Or if only I married that guy, then I will be happy. That list can go on indefinitely. And what dragons feel that? The inferior or flawed dragon, the anxious dragon, the wounded dragon, the should or shaming dragon, the judgmental dragon, the grief and loss dragon. Any of those could breathe fire into that if only. And the truth is, just like the mind reading or the fortune telling, we're not God. We don't know. Or even the guilt beating, or just the bad. Who are we to label anything, to say anything? It is not our job. God did what he did. He created us all. He created the world, and nothing in this world happens without his permission. So whether I like it or not, he has a purpose for that. And instead of trying to, hope for or look at my neighbor's grass that is greener than mine, and if I had that grass, or the people that do the lawn for them, if they came and did the lawn in my house, then I would have a nicer yard, et cetera, et cetera. When we do that, we're trying to be God and change what we don't like about our lives. And the last one is the blaming. The blaming act is blaming someone or something for your problems. We know we got that one from Adam and Eve. Immediately when they sinned and disobeyed God, the first thing is the woman you gave me, the serpent, was the fault. We tend to we don't take the responsibility, but we blame somebody else. And that dragon that fuels that would be the special, spoil, or entitled dragon. Because, obviously I couldn't do it wrong. That's not my fault. It's somebody else's fault. So I'm just a victim of, somebody else's problems. And even when people do things wrong, and they are the ones who started something, and they were the ones who hurt me, I didn't do anything to them. Still, I don't have it's not my place to blame them. We can take the route that our Messiah did when he knew perfectly well what the people were doing when they crucified him. And he still said to the Father, forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they're doing. So, if somebody knows the heart of a person, is our Messiah. And if he didn't even raise an accusation against them, we shouldn't either. We should follow the higher road and say, just like him, even if so-and-so did whatever they did, forgive them, Father. And just release that instead of blaming. So those are the actual, species of the ants. So there are 5 questions that are very helpful to help with talking back. That's what he calls it. He says, when you were teenagers, you probably were really good. At least he says he was talking back at your parents. If they said something to you, then you would like, but da, 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 and you had a way to get out of whatever it is that they were telling you. Well, somebody else, and I don't have right now her name, has this teaching that he has used, and he gives her credit for it every time he says it. I just can't remember right now her name, but okay, hold on, let me find it. In his notes, it says, okay, yes, this powerful ant killing process is based on the work of a psychiatrist, Aaron Beck, who pioneered cognitive behavior therapy, and author Byron Katie. Byron Katie is the one that he normally mentions. So this process is a very simple question, 5-question process, and I am just going to read this to you. It says, the first question is it true? So sometimes the first question will stop the ant because you already know it's not true. Sometimes your answer will be, I don't know. If you don't know, then do not act like the negative thought is true. Sometimes you may think or feel that the negative thought is true, but that is why the second question is so important. So when if somebody, let's say, going back to the example with Cindy, so do you know that Cindy is really upset with you? And then I would have to say, well, is it true? Well, I really don't know. It looks like it is, the face that she made looked like, she really didn't like it. So then comes the second question, which is it absolutely true with 100% certainty? So then if I ask that question, obviously I will be saying, no, I don't have 100% certainty because she hasn't said it. I am reading that in her face, but she didn't say a word. So no, I do not know that. Okay. So then my third question would be, how would I feel if I couldn't have this thought? So I'm sorry, the third question is, how do I feel when I believe this thought? So if I believe this thought, I would feel really bad. I feel like, I just disappointed her, or I probably was not listening to what she wanted, and I was giving her information that she didn't need, or I was not being clear, or whatever it is that it makes me feel bad that she is feeling the way she is. So how would I feel if I couldn't have that thought? Let's say that automatic negative thought was not in my mind. I would have thought I would be happy to talk to Cindy and tell her all about this ants and this process. And let me tell you, this is awesome. I learned it, and da da da. I would be perfectly happy. Nothing would bother me. I would just continue to do what I'm doing right now, right? But so how do I get rid of that? So then your fourth question is, you turn it around to its exact opposite, and then ask if the opposite of the thought is true, or even truer than the original thought. So let's say that I said, you know what? It could be that she was just, somebody was in the room and she was making that face to somebody else and had nothing to do with me. I can just turn that around. Or if I'm really concerned, I can ask her, right? Cindy, are you okay? And then that will be the end of it. Then she says, yeah, I'm so sorry. My husband was asking me here a question. I couldn't understand what he was saying because I was trying to listen to you. Oh, great. Over, So as simple as that, just turn it around, because it's not worth going around thinking in my mind all these things when she hasn't said a word to begin with. And then the other one is, how can I turn that around? How can I make something out of it in a positive way? So Dr. Amen gives, actually it's his wife, Tana, is given this example. And I'm just gonna share with you what she said. So she's thinking about this whole pandemic, and she's feeling anxious. And then she says, nothing will ever be normal again. So then she stops and asks herself, it's like, okay, I know better than that. Is that true? Or first of all, what type of ant is that? So she knows this process. So she stops in her tracks and says, okay, that is a fortune telling ant, right? Because here I am already predicting that nothing is going to ever be the same. So then, is it true? And she, in her mind is, yes, it is true. So is it absolutely true, 100% certainty that nothing will ever be normal again? So then she says, no, some things may go back to normal, but there may be a new normal for other things. Okay, so how do I feel when I believe this thought? Well, I feel anxious, I feel powerless, I feel hopeless, out of control. Okay, so how would I feel if I couldn't have this thought? And then I'll feel relieved, I will feel in control, and I will feel like my usual self. So turn the thought around to its exact opposite. And I like, for those of you that have done the creation gospel, I love that contronym, is the opposite of itself. And it's good to do that. And it says everything has another side. Every coin has two sides. So look at the coin on the opposite side and see how that fits. And then she says, some things will be normal again. Any evidence that that's true? And then she says, yes, some things are already starting to return to how they were before the pandemic. So that the thought to meditate on is, some things will be normal again. So when that comes to her mind and she thinks, I'm doomed, this is horrible, this will never be the same. Well, there will be a new normal, but some things will be normal again. Like, I'm going into hospitals right now without a mask. So just like it was before, without the mask. So that is a way that you can work on those autonomic negative thoughts. And I am going to give you, I'll type it in. Well, if Katrina can help me, that would be awesome. It's called, if you can go to Know Your Dragons, with plural, with an S.com. I would like you to go and take that test. It's a questionnaire. And when you fill it out, it's going to send to your email the dragons that you mostly deal with. So it will help you understand that. And we can go over this on another call, because it will just make it too long. And I'm trying to keep them in half an hour. But there are, those dragons will give you triggers. Then the origin of them. How did you get that dragon? Because most dragons we get from our childhood, or they're being passed down by our ancestral, by our ancestors, and it's called the ancestral one. Then there are strategies to work with them, and there are affirmations that we can use to quench the fire that they like to breathe. So if you like to do that, on our next class, we can go more into it, and definitely on our on my office hours, we can talk about some of your dragons, and you can tell me which one, and I'll give you some information on that. But you will get a lot of that information on your results from that questionnaire. Okay, ladies, I have not been able to read any of the chat. So if anybody has any comments or any questions, or you wrote something there that I'm on my phone and I have it sideways so I can see as many of your faces as I can. So you can let me know. Any questions? Any comments?
Oh, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen some of those dragons like for a long time, you know, in myself, different ones, and through the years, notice it. And of course, you know, you notice it first in you, and then you're like, oh, that person has that one. Well, you know, right? And I'm specifically, it's more like when I think about my husband, right? And I'll go, oh, he's doing the all or nothing thing, or he's reading my mind, or, you know, and it's like, oh, but I hadn't really, I guess my question was, for you, and you've probably seen them in yourself, and you do this all the time. Have you seen dramatic change? Have you ever like gotten rid of one, like totally, like you don't deal with this one anymore at all? Or is it just, you just get to it quicker and you just stop it right in its tracks?
Yeah, you know, I just did this training last year, and I finished just at the end of June, and I took my last you know, my final exam then. So I've been dealing with this just a year. I'm 62, so you can imagine my dragons are nice and well set. So it is nice to recognize the patterns. Actually, there's some that as I've been doing this, it's been like, goodness gracious, that is where that's coming from. It's like, you know them, you can recognize them, you can label them, but where are you coming from? And you just break your, you know, your head trying to find the origin of it, and you can't think of it. And then it's like, oh, that is so awesome, because then when you do know the origin, then it's easier than just throwing a blanket out there and trying to generalize something to just turn it, you know, get the contronym, the other side of it. It is so nice to be able to say, I know exactly what that is, and no, we're not going there. And you're able to then directly put, you know, an end to that. And I don't know, so far, I don't know that there is a completely never again. It could be, I don't know, because, you know, all of you that are younger that are learning this, you have more years to work into that. And you may be able to see, you know, give me an answer that would actually be more database than mine, because mine is too short yet. But one thing I have noticed is that even things that I kind of recognized, didn't know the label that he's given them, you know, how he's calling them and all that, those were things that I was already doing in some of them, and doing it without even thinking. I'm pretty sure that some of you are already doing that, and now you're like, oh, so that's what I was doing. And And that is awesome when you have like research to back up what you've been feeling and do and actually doing for a while with some success, right? So yes, I would say that I can spot them quicker. I can now actually, some of them, like that middle child thing, um, it is an interesting because I am a middle child, but then at the same time, I was put in a position of a firstborn from the get-go. Even to this day, my older brother and sister will ask me, they're 6 and 7 years older than me, and they would ask me my opinion about something. And I'm like, you're older than me. Why are you asking me? So that was a position that was given to me by my parents. So um, it is a dichotomy there when, I'm treated as a middle child and invisible because it's not about my feelings or how I should be addressed as a child that I was, but I'm treated as an adult and and being made responsible for my younger siblings, like that was like I birthed them, like it was my responsibility to do that. So you feel invisible, you feel like I have feelings too, and I get a fear, and I get anxious, and I get lonely, and I get, whatever feeling anybody could have at any given time. But all of a sudden, it's all about theirs. And what about mine? So there is all kinds of things that then, I never really paid attention to that. And it's like when I read it, it's like, yeah, I feel pretty invisible at times. It's like there was no given any my feelings were given and no importance at any given time when it had to do with them. So I don't know if I'm answering directly your question, but that's just been my experience with that.
So you're understanding more about it. And I wanted to ask you about when you said when you understood it, were you referring to like understanding a root experience in your childhood that formed that pattern? Then because then once you can know the root experience, then you can and you or get over that root experience that caused the abandonment issue or the rejection or whatever it is, that helps to get over the thinking.
Well, it could be an experience, but a lot of time was not just like that one specifically that I was talking about was not really an experience in itself. It was a modus operandi. That's just the way my life went. As not on one event, it was many, many events. That's just the way life was. I was the mom. And actually, my mom, when my parents got divorced, I was already married. And my dad traveled a lot, and my mom was gone. And my father would ask me to come back home and take care of my siblings. So it was like, even after I was already married and gone from the house, I was still being looked at like the mom, like I was supposed to come home and take care of them. And so that was just life. That was my life. So I don't know that that would be an event in that case. That was just the way life was for me as a child. And then there have been others. Now the events are so much easier. I've had events, and I have shared this before with you in other classes. With you, I mean with this healing at the well class, or yeah, I think it was in this one, or at the parenting class. I can't remember, but that there was one event that I didn't know why I was reacting the way I was reacting. And when I found out what the origin of it was, I was able to go back to myself and to my young 1.5-year-old self and say to myself, baby girl, yes, you were shook with violence by a very angry face, and your bone was my collarbone was broken, and you did have a cast, and you don't have a cast anymore. Your bone is healed. There is no cast, and there is no angry face shaking you anymore. You're okay. And that went just like that. Poof, gone. That place in my mind that I was loopy, that whenever I would see somebody screaming and being angry would trigger me. And immediately my response would be, ooh, that's going to break a bone. It went away. I've never had that again. That whole thing. And I was telling that story then, and explaining how that was, happened to me every time my husband was watching football. And at the time that I was working on that process, and I recognized it and I dealt with it, my husband said, well, the proof is in the pudding. When football comes around, we'll know. And yes, football came around months later. I had totally forgot about that. So did he. And when he asked me to watch a replay, and I'm watching the replay, I didn't do the protecting myself that I did automatically every time I saw, people piled up and against, on top of one another. And I didn't do the, oh, that's going to break a bone. I went like, whoa, that was painful. And we both looked at each other and said, wow, I've been seeing you do this for years and it was gone. So some events do go just like that.
That's really
now,
cool.
Patterns are a little bit harder because they've been there for too long. But it's nice to stop them in their tracks and say, no, you're not taking me there, that route again. I'm not going down that route. So it's nice.
My friend and I have a joke going around this year is certain people, especially like when you have older children that try to push your buttons.
Mm-hmm.
And so my friend and I are having this thing this year where we say, oh, well, you know what? We're just going to remove that button this year. It's gone. You used to get me. So we're just taking that button away. We don't like that one.
That's good. And, sometimes we put a little Band-Aid on top of the button and it kind of like disappears until somebody pushes that Band-Aid. And then you realize, oh, it's still there. But yes, we need to get rid of this button, because if there's no button, there's nothing to push. How nice is that? Thank you, Lori.
I have 2 questions. First question is it possible to prevent these dragons? Like, I just got my daughter Emma to do it because, well, she can't move. So she's kind of stuck with me and with you now. She's stuck on the couch with her injury. So I just got her to do it. And she did come up middle child, which makes sense. We have 12 kids and she's the 3rd youngest girl in a set of twins and triplets. So she's the 3rd. They're all 6 months apart and she's the youngest. All the girls are 6 months apart. She's the youngest by half an hour. So first question, can you prevent it? Second question, when
hold on,
does it go from
you broke up, so what's a dragon?
Like the middle child one, the what was it, Emma? Like the dragon of like okay, she's looking it up again.
Invisible.
It was the middle child one that you said, invisible.
Yeah. Okay, I got you.
So can you prevent these? Because obviously I don't want any of my kids having any of them. Abandoned, invisible, insignificant dragons. Second question, how do you know when it crosses a line and somebody does need meds? I'm not a meds person, but I know, like, how do you know when these dragons do cross, I guess what I'm saying, cross a line to possible mental illness, or that people say, okay, either you have a mental illness or you, or people pray over you that you're not possessed. Like, I'm just thinking for other people and stuff that, that we know. I mean, I guess it's just, how do you some people have mental illnesses, so many people are on, and
you're breaking up, Melissa.
I think I lost. Oh, I think I lost connection. So we were just saying, when does it become like mental illness for like, is there a line? When does it go from a dragon to a sickness, or is that possible?
Well, that's a loaded question.
So prevention and drugs. Very hard question.
Yes, because there's a lot of variables and that for me to give you an honest and informed, answer, because I don't know all the, I could say, oh no, that could never happen. And then I don't know all the elements involved in that. And then that would be very responsible of me. So let me just say that it depends how you label mental illness. Okay. One thing that I can say, Dr. Daniel Amen, that's who I work with, he does not, you would do a brain type, he would do a full battery of questionnaires and questions that are both asked you about her and her about her, so that we can get a more balanced response to know exactly, because sometimes I may think this way, but when, you as my mother may say, no, that's not exactly what you do. And then say your part. So, there's a questionnaire that have both. Then there is blood tests that is done so that we can determine, hormone levels and all kinds of different factors that could determine a lack of something or an excess of something in your blood. And then obviously he would do a SPECT where he would do a functional MRI so that how your brain is perfusing, the blood perfusion of your brain in a calm state. And then he'll have you do some activities, or her some activities, and then do the scan again so that he can have a baseline and see how the brain functions under stress, and then be able to give you a better answer to that. And after he does all that, like if you do the brain type test, that it's also free online, just like that one, he will cover diet, he would cover exercise, he would cover, different types of things that you can do in order to help your brain increase something or decrease something. So it's more complicated than just that, than just say, oh, yep, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I was just asking because it seems like a lot of people are on, these mental health drugs, and yeah, this just sounds good to help people get off. So
right. I've always am of the mindset that we are responsible for our mind. When I go before the throne of God, I cannot say, well, Melissa told me this, so that's all I know, and that's what I did. He's going to say, what did I say to you about that? I am responsible to walk in the light that he has shown me. And I'm not responsible for what other people tell me. So we always start from there, from what have I done? And I gather as much information so I can help myself. I do research for my own. It's not like I believe because so-and-so told me to. No, I believe because I've searched it and this is what I believe I should be doing. So you can never go wrong implementing any of this and searching it out and asking the Holy Spirit to guide you, because that's the function of the Holy Spirit, to guide us into all truth. So, but with that said, he would definitely give you supplements and change diet and change other things in a natural way before he would ever give you medication. Because a lot of the medications that are used for mental illness are, the majority are mind altering. So you just want to make sure that you are doing everything you can before you get into those. And he never likes to do that and just leave you there. It's like, oh, you're going to be taking lithium forever, because that's just your, what your problem is. So, you have to look in the cooler. So that is that, I would always go through natural, food, supplements, essential oils, massages, exercises. There's a lot of different things that I would try before I would get into medication. And prayer is always great. There you can't go wrong with prayer. You were saying, people may pray with you. There is wisdom in the multitude of counselors. So it's good to be able to get others' opinion too, and not just one person. In the outside pocket. Well, I have my grandbabies coming in and asking me a lot of questions. So I have time for one more, and then I have to go. I can't hear anything. It's breaking up. Yeah, it's muted.
I think you're muted.
You're muted, Melissa. No, I'm not.
Oh, sorry, I was purposely muted. I was done. It's just my house is loud. Yeah, I wasn't asking any specific questions. Thank you. I wasn't asking any more questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
have any more question in the office hours, you can call in and we can talk more.
Okay.
Bye,
Perfect.
Melissa.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Bye, Melissa.
Anybody else has a question?
There's more.
Thank you, Simi. It was a great teaching.
Thank you, Erica.
The idea of the dragons is very interesting to be able to, because those are like concepts that, being familiar with, generational things and anxiety and abandonment, but to have something like tangible almost to picture them as is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of helpful to imagine slaying your dragons. It's very interesting. So I'm going to go test that out. Take the
Yeah.
test.
That's exactly what I felt when I heard it. I'm like, dragons, I'm not so sure. And then I'm like, no, that is exactly what our flesh is a beast. So yeah, I can see that happening. And the first scripture that came to my mind was that one of Cain. It's knocking at the door and it desires to have you. And our flesh wants to rule over us. And we have to rule over it. We have to master it. So biblically makes sense. But like you said, being something that I can see and I can actually, there is something about quantum physics that it's called superposition that I love, because we are told that we're seated in heavenly places with God, so, right? With Messiah. So in Messiah, he's the living word. So we are seated with the word in heavenly places. So it's nice to be able to say, and it's when you're trying to deal with something, you want to minimize it and put it inside a box where you can see it and say, it's kind of like this glass, the liquid is in there. The liquid is not falling out. The liquid is not touching me. So if I can put my situation into a container that I can see it from out here, seated with him, and not being in the water in this liquid and feeling overwhelmed by it, then I can deal with it so much easier. So that picture of having a dragon that I can slay, my flesh that I can slay, that just makes it so much easier for me. So I agree with you.
I'm pretty sure we need our flesh to say something. Don't we need our flesh to say something?
We do. We need our flesh. So my grandbaby's talking to me over here. So they just went down to the pool and came back to the room. So
Coming back.
I'm glad that I was able to, here's my little one. I'm glad that,
The big one.
so here's the big little one. You're my babies. So
They're adorable. Hi, girls.
thank you.
Thank you.